Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matthew Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
In our modern day world, we'll always end up having to have interviews, either giving or receiving an interview. This week's show, I want to look at the best interview questions and the most powerful way you can put yourself over in an interview. Well, without any more delay, let's get on with this week's show. Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. Hope you are well, and I hope your team are doing well. As you might be able to hear, I have got a little bit of a croaky voice at the minute. That's why I missed last week's episode, because the croak was pretty bad and it would have sounded even worse than it does now. Or unless it sounds good. Either way, let me know your thoughts on the whole voice situation. This week we're going to talk around interviews. I myself have been for quite a few interviews over the time. I've given a few interviews. It's a really stressful time, and it should be. You know, there should be a point where you are stressed when you're going into an interview. Not to the point where you're just a gibbering wreck. You know, you need to be in a place where you can present your skills, your experience, your way to the person. And on the other side of the table, if you are giving an interview, maybe slightly less nervous, but also you've got to make sure that you've been prepared and professional for it. I think in this episode, I'm just going to go through some of the most powerful questions you could be asked, and also some of the powerful answers and words you should try to get over to the person who you are interviewing with, because it's really important to make sure that you are prepared, you know your stuff. Now, I've gone through a few of the other stuff in the past around the STAR and around being prepared for interviews, so I'm not going to touch on a lot of that. There is some old episodes, if you want to go back and look at those, which talks around those basics, which is obviously, you know, knowing where you're going, knowing the company, turning up on time, knowing the person who you're going to be interviewing. But this week I want to look at the fact that interviewing, you need to get over quite a few sort of real benefits to that person who's interviewing you, because a lot of the time when you walk through that door into the cafe or in wherever you're having the interview, there's going to be a preconception of what you are giving to that person. They should have read your CV. And on the other side of the table, if you are being the person doing the interview, please make sure you have read the CV before the person walks through the door. The number of times when I've been interviewed and they've got the CV in the hand, there's not a note on it, it's cleanly been printed straight off the printer. I feel on some of the interviews they haven't even read it, they haven't even looked at it. In fact, one of the person who did interview actually said, "I've not even read your CV." So at one point you start thinking, well, you haven't read your CV, fair enough, okay, you're going to take me as I am. Maybe you're one of those guys who work, or girls who works off the hip, which is fair enough, but have a background read, have a look, because, all right, the recruiter will have probably done a pre-screen for you if you're interviewing. But if you're walking in there and you haven't done a little bit of basics, like, you know, where does the guy come from, what's she's background, what's, you know, and then you start asking the questions. Okay, you might come over as trying to probe and, oh, yeah, I'm being a bit different, but sometimes it just comes over as non-prepared. So make sure you prepare, and also make sure you've got some questions you want to ask. I mean, some of the first interviews I've been to, it's a general chat. It's been nice. You have a coffee, you're having a talk. You're normal, you're human, you're putting yourself over, and that's great. But also there'll be the side that you want to really dig into some of the areas. And there'll always be worries as an interviewer on the CV. There'll be bits, a gap, or a reason why that person left that role, or why didn't that go so well, or the things that they're saying on that CVs just sound too amazing. Cured world hunger, or stopped all the wars, and obviously not. But if you go into that in depth, and you really want to say, how was that person saved 5 million? That's a heck of a big number. What does that look like? What does that mean? So have a look at that. Make sure that you dig into the CV before you get there. Anyway, so let's think of some of the most powerful words that you need to be using in the interview. So what you want to be doing, especially if you're going to be into a mid or senior management position you're interviewing, is look at the way that you're going to have to not just be an expert in what you do. A lot of the time you've got to be an expert as an engineer, operations, service person, sales, commercial, whatever that is. So you've got to have a blend of it. And when you get a senior in the organisation, they're going to expect someone who has a wider view of the world, of the economics, of the industry, and of the business. So one of the things you really do need to get into the conversation is around how much you're commercially driven or commercially aware. Because even if you're interviewing at a senior engineering level, they need to know, excuse me, that you've got a commercial drive, that you know that whatever happens in the business, you're still going to know what's happening in the world. So start to make sure that you use the word commercially driven somewhere in the answers. And that can be something around, tell me about your strengths. Well, I feel I'm commercially driven because I am always up to date on all the new stuff that goes on in my industry. I'm commercially driven because I know exactly what the business will need to get out the door. I know it's not just around fixing this, it's actually making sure that we deliver on time and in full and the customer gets the quality that they need. So try to sort of look at that bigger picture. That means that the interviewer has got that idea of actually this person isn't just an expert on the subject. I have interviewed people before and they've been brilliant at what they know and what they do. And actually the role they could probably do, but would they be able to know the bigger picture? Would they be too siloed when it came to any decisions because they were so entrenched in their own area? So have a look at that, commercially driven. Another thing people are going to expect you to deliver, especially in senior roles, well, any role really, it's all about the podcast, is results. So are you result orientated? Do you deliver results? Think about that in your questions. How do you put over the fact that you can deliver results to that person? Because they want to bring someone in who can really get in there, can work, and can solve problems, can deliver results, can be results orientated, not the results can be different for different parts of the work. If you're in the health and safety field, you're being results orientated by making sure the business is successful, but doesn't do any harm to its people or its visitors or its customers. So you can put that into the conversation. So think about that. One of the things you are definitely going to be looking for as an interviewee is person who is self-disciplined, someone who is going to turn up and be able to get on with the work, doesn't need to be told every minute of every day what to do. Now that's unusual that you can do that when you get to senior level, but also, that person doesn't know you. So you need to be putting in that you're self-disciplined, you hit your targets, you get things done, sort of marry that into the fact that you are commercially driven and you understand the results, but look at making sure you're putting in that you're self-disciplined, that you know what needs to be done, that you work to a to-do list, that you've got some structure around you. Sometimes you get questions like, what does your day look like? What's a typical day look like for you? And that's a really good one to say, right, well, actually, because I'm so self-disciplined, what I normally do is I would sort my day out, usually in the morning before I get to work, either on the commute or actually the night before when I know when I've finished what I'm going to do the day before. I check my calendar is up to date. I make sure that I've got those things. I also know what is my most important and urgent thing that needs to be done. Remember the box matrix of important and urgent, get that in there. And I make sure I'm self-disciplined, that when I need to get things done, I'm on it. But also I know when it's time to just step back, do a little bit of creative thinking and take some time away, or even have a break from the computers, because I know it's important to recharge. So things like that you can spin in. So that idea of being self-disciplined. One of the things that shouldn't really need to be said, but unfortunately does, is the fact of being enthusiastic. So when you walk into a room, all right, you don't need to be bouncing and jumping around, high-fiving like some sort of game show host, but you've got to be enthusiastic. And that comes over straight away. Now, obviously, there'll be different roles you want to go for. And if you've been interviewed for a certain business, it might be very low-key. It could be that you're not expected to be enthusiastic. But enthusiasm crosses all. Enthusiasm is something that people look for. You can't train enthusiasm into somebody. You can train the skills and the knowledge can come, but enthusiasm is that thing you need to have. You need to have enthusiasm to be there. So people are looking for enthusiasm. More difficult to put it across, but also you can put it into your things when, it tells one of your strengths. Well, I feel I'm a really good commercially driven person with massive amounts of enthusiasm. If I don't know something, I'll go find out. I'm very self-disciplined when it comes to going and finding those things. You see how you can marry it in. And that's not doing the old kidding. It's actually true. You are or should be enthusiastic about the role you've gone for. If you're not, okay, you could get the role. Well done, brilliant. First few paychecks, excellent, superb. Within a year, 6 months, you're going to be bored. If it's not for you and you're not enthusiastic about the role, don't go for the role. What else are we looking for? Well, we're looking for someone who can complete and finish the jobs. That's what I look for. If I'm going to be a manager hiring one of my subordinates, I want them to come to the work, solve my problems, which is another thing to look at, but also complete and finish what they're doing. If I give them a project, I want them to go away, finish the project in full, do it right, come back. Obviously, ask for help, advice, seek collaboration, but make sure you finish it. And that leads nicely into the next point about being a problem solver. The interview process is to say, can that person solve the problems I've got? If there's no problems and you don't need someone to solve a problem for you, then why are you hiring someone? Because there's no issues to solve, then what's that person there doing? So look at the idea of being a problem solver in there. What else can you do? Well, let's have a think. Collaboration. You are going to have to work in an environment with lots of different people. You're going to have to be able to collaborate. You can't just sit in a cubicle on your own. So make sure you're looking at how you can be a collaborator in there so you know how to work as a team. So those are the things you need to start looking at. So those are some of the ones that you want to do there. And finally, the final point I would say is if you can put it in there, people are looking for people who are enthusiastic, obviously, self-disciplined, but also industrious. They're going to be able to solve your problems by being industrious, being there and being there. Again, not over the top, not hyper, but being industrious, someone who gets work done. You've got confidence of when you're not in the office, that person isn't just sat on Facebook, they're actually delivering for you. So those are some of the words I think you should start looking at. I think what we need to do in the next episode is maybe go through what some of those questions might look like and some of those words get put into them. So just to leave you with it, what are the powerful words you should start to put into your interviews? Think of things like commercially driven. You are results orientated. You're self-disciplined. You're enthusiastic. You complete and finish what you've been given. You solve problems. You can collaborate with others. And you're industrious. So have a look at those 8 words. Remember, people are looking for your strengths, your motivation, and your fit. So how does those words help do that in an interview? Now, there may be some words I've missed. I'm sure there is. And there may be some other areas that you think are a great thing to put into your power words. So please send me your feedback to managermattpodcast@gmail.com about what you've used in your interviews. Love to hear how you've made an interview work for you or failed. Remember, winning, losing, failing, succeeding. Interviews are a process. Sometimes they don't work out. I've been through interviews recently and in the past where I haven't got the role. You take the feedback, you move on, you get better. There's a reason why you didn't get it. That's fine. Sometimes you think that reason sounds absolutely nonsense. Well, don't shoot the messenger if it's a recruiter. That's the way it is. If you haven't got it, there's a reason why you haven't got it. Ask for feedback. Yep, nothing wrong with that. But don't dwell on it too much. Move on. There'll be another role down the road. That's how business is. I'm sure on the other foot, you've seen candidates who've walked through the door and within 5 minutes you thought, no, this person ain't going to work. But you do the right thing. You go through the interview with them and then you give them some good feedback at the end. And as I say, feedback is a gift, so keep on giving. Right, that's it for Manager Matt this week. Just about managed to get through with a croaky voice. All the best for you up there, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider, as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.